And we're on the phone right now with Stephen DiJoseph. We haven't talked to him in quite a long time, probably a couple of years now. And welcome back to the show, Stephen.
Thanks, Michael. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, so you guys have been, or you have been working on a project the past couple of years. Before we get into all of that, let's just hear a little bit about you and your background and what the Synaptic Adventure is all about.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Basically, the concept of synaptic adventure developed out of my experience of living with Tourette's.
Mm-hmm.
I was diagnosed when I was 16. It showed up when I was 6, and so the synaptic adventure became sort of a way to express things that go on in our body, in our brain, in our mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so really, the concept is universal in that everyone has a synaptic adventure, and what it became for me is a story of Tourette's, but it's really more universal, is what I discovered as time went on.
So I'm sorry. So is the story more of a retrospective as to living with Tourette's, or is it a way of explaining how you can overcome it and get past that, or a little bit of both?
I think it's a little bit of both and then some, because it's created as like a point of view experiential film, almost experimental documentary.
Right.
And it pretty much just the idea that draws you into the different aspects of it that I've experienced, that I think a lot of people have, because as the film gets more and more exposure, I'm finding a lot of people identify with it. So. So it's all the above and then some.
So you say film? We're talking a short film, right?
Yes, it's actually it's actually a short documentary.
Okay.
As it's been slated in the screenings it's getting, and it's about 12 minutes long.
Okay, and you've been working on this for a number of years now, I know, right?
Yeah, and as I prefaced it, well, I'm a musician, obviously. Mm-hmm. I mean, as you know, or maybe
Sure.
the folks don't know, but I've always been a musician, and I got into filmmaking with the advent of the Mac, with iMovie, and so it made it accessible with the idea of editing and realizing your own visual thing in a pretty easy to operate digital basis.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a camera, and I started making videos to my music. And then I just got more and more involved in it. And over time, the concept of Kickstarter comes along and fundraising platforms. And so that's how it led into the project of making a film that something that I've wanted to do for a long time, which was to make put together a presentation about my experience of Tourette's and how it's become it's really a collaborative experience.
Right.
You know?
So what kind of recognitions have you gotten for your film? Have you been, getting a lot of recognitions from people that have Tourette's syndrome, or from, the medical community? What kind of recognitions?
I would say it's a broad response at this point, in that it won Best Documentary in the Bucks Film Festival in 2013, and then ended up on Comcast Xfinity for about 5 weeks.
Nice.
And then the Philadelphia Inquirer interviewed me, and then WXPN Radio an interview, and now it's expanding out. The Washington D.C. Film Festival selected it to screen at their festival in February. So it's just expanding, and I'm finding that there's a lot of openness to a variety of both neurological and physical experiences that people have, and people want to see people approaching it from a creative point of view and just changing their attitudes about it. Both people who are on both sides of the fence, people experiencing it in their own life and people observing it,
Right.
So I think, it's sort of a timely topic, it seems to me.
Sure.
So even though I've been, for years been thinking about it and been trying to develop a presentation, but film became the medium
Right.
to really do that.
And in this day and age with the internet, it makes it a lot easier for you to get your message out. I'm sure your message has been received very well, not only professionally, but by fellow people who have Tourette's syndrome, would you say?
Yeah, I've been a gentleman named Brad Cohen.
Okay.
Brad had a film that became very successful called Front of the Class, which told the story of a young man with Tourette's who had the dream of becoming a teacher. And Hallmark produced it. I think Hallmark produced it. I know they promoted it. And it became a pretty big success because Oprah picked him up and all kinds of. But so I got to know Brad at one of the conferences, and recently we were talking, and he really dug what I did, and which was exciting because it's kind of antithetical of a more of a straight ahead approach, you know.
Right.
It's not. It's more of an artistic approach, but I think because I was able to work with a fine producer.
Right.
Her name was Beth Conn Kennedy, just so everybody knows who that was. And she helped me to focus the overly creative, so to speak, process of creating. You know, it's like, you know, you're going this and that direction, and it was great to have the input. Someone said, well, be sure that, you know, someone who said both, be sure that it's clear and make sure you keep that, because that whatever you did there was really good.
Right,
you know?
right.
Because sometimes I felt it was too subjective, maybe.
Right.
You know, or you know. So it was a raw project, raw in terms of the approach of the ways of shooting an indie, sort of independent process, you know. But the topic and the way it came together at the end really worked.
Now, you mentioned you're also a musician, Stephen, and we know that, but for any listeners that don't know that, do you ever combine the message that you're getting out in your film with your music? Do the two kind of work together, or are they two separate entities of you?
Well, in terms of the actual reality of it, like a live performance, I mean, it's intrinsic,
right?
Because it's a visual thing.
Right.
Like, you know, if I had a birthmark under my sleeve, so to speak, you know, it wouldn't be. But so it became over time. I was like, well, you know, people were curious why this is going on while I'm playing, you know, or in between my playing. So let's get with the program, so to speak, and start talking about it. So it is part of. It is intrinsic into the music, and I think it even affects the way I write. You know, or maybe the many different avenues I like to go down.
Right.
So, did that answer? Was that?
Yeah, that answers the question perfectly.
Okay.
So my next question then would be: so what's next for Stephen DiJoseph? Are you working on, expanding your filmmaking or your music, or is this what you do professionally? Is this your full time, full time job? Very good.
100% full time.
Wow.
It's really a double job.
Right, I'm sure it is.
There's so many aspects, but as actually what's happening is that it's starting to reach a national buzz where there's actually a distributor interested, and so now for me it's about putting in place the support team to help that expand.
Right.
You know? And at the same time, you know, remain true to my vision. So at this point, it's something like that is very accessible for artists these days because there's so much control that the internet has given us as artists to expand on our ideas and do it the way we want to do it. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and it's, you know, it's definitely a jungle in terms of trying to figure out all the varieties of ways to go, but it's definitely, if you just chill out and breathe and then focus, there's plenty of information to get you to the right place.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. With the internet, it's wonderful that you can get so many common people can get their message out there, but it's also, like you said, a jungle where there's just so much out there. People don't know how to navigate it. So how do you make yourself stand out and get that message out there?
Yeah, that is. Was that a question or?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, yeah.
Well, it is a good question. I mean, I think I've always heard people say, "Well, what's your story?" You know, and I say, "Well, I'm a musician," blah, blah, you know, and I was sort of, I mean, I operated for years like, "Well, I have Tourette's, but that's over there. That's my thumb, or that's
right.
Part of, you know." But like as I began to look at it, I began to say that is not just my thumb. It's like it's part of me, and it's a driving force, and it's got so many dimensions that. So I think when you look at your own story as an artist, whether you're a musician, a songwriter, a playwright, whatever it is, I think it's just when you look at what you're doing, you know, the big picture, and just kind of get clear. It's like it was hard for me to see that because I was like driven with the music, and that is the core of everything I do. But it became clear that was the story that was going to get me in another place. It was just going to help me to have a better life, experience life in a happier way.
Absolutely. And it sounds like that you have definitely done that. So where can we get more? Where can our listeners get more information about you if they want to learn more about you and how they can? Well, let that be my final question. Is there ways that people can, that have Tourette syndrome can participate in the project somehow? Do you have anything set up like that?
Absolutely. I have on my website, I have what's called a U camp, like YOU.
Okay.
So people can come there and share their story. And then the ideas that we're building towards having, featuring people each week or daily or however it unfolds, depending on the volume of response.
Right.
So I have that interactive aspect on the site, and my site, of course, I'll give you that too. It's a
sure.
Site. If you went to StephenDiJoseph.com, you would get it. StephenDiJoseph.com.
Okay.
Or Synaptic Adventure, which is a little more hard to remember, but both will take you there. But Synaptic, SYNAPTIC, Adventure.com.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank you so much, Stephen DiJoseph, for being a part of the show today. We're definitely going to encourage our listeners to check that out and be a part of the project. It sounds like a wonderful thing.
Please do, yeah, and I've got lots of music there and lots of stuff going on.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the show, Stephen.
Thanks, Michael.
You have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.